Greetings, lovely people, and welcome to Fast Track Reviews, the only show where I blabber on for 5 to 10 minutes about the newest films coming out, spoiler free, and then go on to spend as much time as I care to going over everything that I like spoilers. So, this is Suicide Squad, or The Suicide Squad, which the amount of memes that I've seen about, the fact that it is literally just The Suicide Squad compared to Suicide Squad, I'm not going to add to that. That's not why I'm here. But yeah, no, it's a dumb title. I honestly do think that they probably should have gone with a subtitle rather than just The. But at the same time, I understand this isn't supposed to be a sequel. It's understandable that they would make it as similar to the original in order to actually make it so it's more distinct as a separate film. Because as much as, I like things like how Spider-Man has alternated, the difference between Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man makes it a lot more clear that it's a separate universe compared to Spider-Man and Spider-Man Far From Home. You know what I mean? You could see those being in the same universe. So, overall, the title, as weird as I find it, and as much as I'm willing to blabber on about it, it's whatever. I like Suicide Squad, I like the Suicide Squad. Let's just get into it. So, first and foremost, this is a James Gunn film, which brings all the baggage associated with a James Gunn film. I am a huge fan of James Gunn's work. I don't think he's ever made a bad film, personally. He's one of my personal favourites. And, yeah, it's a James Gunn film. The music is a standout to me. It's, for all intents and purposes, flawless. The way that James Gunn films always seem to use pop music that fits the scenarios perfectly is something that Aya couldn't even dream of, honestly. And it's a fascinating thing to look at how the original Suicide Squad used a lot of pop music in a bad way, whilst this film pretty much does the same thing, except for it is done so much more expertly, it works so much more, and it fits the entire tone of the film so much better. This film, compared to Suicide Squad, is a really light-hearted romp, despite the fact it's actually a 15 compared to a 12 like the original, and it's covered in gore and swearing and all the rest. This is the most fun superhero film I've watched in a very long time, probably since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is kind of ironic with that also being a James Gunn picture, but I'm honestly amazed by how well they did the music. It's a standout feature when I'm not going to be talking about spoilers. It's something I really did enjoy. From the start to the end, the music just chef's kiss. Honestly, it's amazing. The cinematography is also brilliant. I think it's honestly phenomenal. I can't point out any specific shots without getting into spoilers, and it's also not my type of discussion. It's not something that I'm hopefully knowledgeable on, to be honest. So I'm going to leave it off for now, but cinematography, if you're into that, you will really enjoy this film. It looks so good. Every shot is so expertly done. There's some very good fight scene cinematography, and honestly, when action films are so prevalent, especially superhero action films, it's really nice to be given something new in terms of how something looks, how a certain shot is done, how an angle is presented, anything like that. It's always such a nice thing, and this has so many of them. It's so cool. And then, it wouldn't be a James Gunn film without some expertly comedic timing and just general amazing script. I'm not going to get into any of the details in this part of the review because obviously it would get into spoilers, but the character development that you get throughout this film is great. There's a lot of really strong backstory on these characters that, for the most part, are brand new to this film. There's only a handful of characters that return, which, if you know, you know. I'm not going to spoil any of that right now, but it's a really, really well-written film, and quite honestly, it's at the very least my favourite DC film, or DCEU film, should I say, the current slate since Man of Steel. It's up there with Joker for how well written it actually is. And that is where I get to my review with this. It is an expertly made film, in pretty much every way. It may be a superhero film, so that does taint it slightly for some. For me, I'm a huge fan of the genre. It's one of my favourites, especially right now. I'm still very much in the, phase of really enjoying superhero films and superhero media. So this was definitely more my alley than some of us. But I couldn't possibly say it any other way than this is a 10 out of 10 film, 5 stars. Now, I like to mention it anyway, I've gone over my review system. 10 out of 10, 5 stars, isn't a perfect film, it is a perfect film for me. 9 out of 10 would be a true perfect film, which I'm not going to get into examples of that because I have a very strange appreciation for very specific types of filmmaking. So I'm just going to say that it is perfect for someone like me who didn't really like a lot of the DC stuff prior to this, but was a fan of Birds of Prey and does enjoy the Snyder Cut. So if you're someone with that kind of enjoyment, or you're a fan of James Gunn's work, which, as I say, this is a James Gunn film first and foremost, you'll definitely enjoy this. So, yeah, that's going to be it for the spoiler-free part of this review. Let's get into the spoilers.
Spoilers.
Now, getting into spoilers, oh my, where do I even begin? I guess I'm going to start with just generally talking about all the main villains and, well, 2 other main characters that aren't villains, just because it's the main reason that people watch Suicide Squad, for the Z-list superheroes and supervillains that appear in it and just get killed. So, first off, of course, Harley Quinn. I've really enjoyed Margot Robbie's performance as Harley Quinn in everything she's been in, from Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, and now this. She is kind of perfect in a weird way for Harley Quinn, and I think if you've enjoyed Harley Quinn before, you're going to enjoy her in this. I think she's really well done. She has some really nice lines and some one-liners and moments and stuff. One thing that really surprised me is that Luna, the main target, I suppose, of the mission, falls in love with Harley, which, it's a questionable move, I will say, but, it works really well. It's actually a really funny set of events, and honestly, it's one of the better parts of the film in a lot of ways. It leads to the part that's been in all the trailers of her escaping, which, oh my, her being in her own head while fighting, it's just an explosion of just colours, and it's like walking through a kaleidoscope, or watching a kaleidoscope, I suppose. It's such a fun scene, and there's little CGI animals and stuff around her. It's so dumb, but it's so fun, and it's such an exploration of her inner psyche, of the fact that, she translates all these murders that she's doing into this, wonderful, brightly coloured dream world almost, and it's a very interesting scene. I guess next up, I'm reading from a list of the cast at this point. Bloodsport. I had no clue who Bloodsport was. I thought he looked cool based on the trailers, but I didn't really care too much. I like Idris Elba. I think he is a phenomenal actor, especially his roles in the MCU, or role in the MCU, was one of my favourites. He was one of my favourite characters in the 4 films. And honestly, he made me like a character I didn't even know existed. So, yeah, I don't think there's much else to say. His gimmick is interesting. His look is phenomenal. He has some really nice backstory, some really nice characterization. He's afraid of rats. And he's, the most dangerous man alive sort of deal. He killed Superman, or he put Superman in hospital. But he's scared of rats. It's such a fun little thing, and it's not needed at all. It's kind of a crux for a lot of the events that happen around him, but it's just a random thing. Peacemaker, John Cena. I went into the film really expecting to like him, and I've enjoyed John Cena in a lot of other films. Um, Weirdly enough, I think he's really good in the Fred movies, which I know aren't good films, but his appearance in those always makes me laugh. I enjoy him. He's a great wrestler. I've enjoyed him generally in a lot of ways. He's also a very nice person, John Cena. His character is terrible in this, and it makes me feel bad because Peacemaker was a character I was aware of. Not, intimately, but I knew of the character. I recognized the outfit. I didn't care at all for John Cena's portrayal, and I don't know whether it was purposely written in a way where you're not supposed to like him from the start, but I never enjoyed him. And he does become essentially a villain to the Suicide Squad towards the end. He does double cross a few members and does get quote unquote killed. Yeah, I don't know. Peacemaker really disappointed me, honestly. I was expecting better things, but at the end of the day, I don't really mind too much. Then, good old Captain Boomerang, Jay Courtney, brilliant as always. He does die, which, how dare they kill him? Like, honestly, he was the best part of the original Suicide Squad. I don't think Harley was. I think it was all Boomer. And they kill him in the first, 10 minutes. It's insane how quickly he actually dies, and oh my, it's a bad time. I was so sad after he died. I was like, well, that's over, because there's a moment where he gets what I would call badly injured. He gets covered in spikes of wood, just a bunch of spikes of wood hit him. But he doesn't die, and he doesn't look overly injured. Then a flaming helicopter comes and crashes into him, and that's what kills him. So I was like, oh no, he's injured, but at least he's alive. That's fine. He's probably gonna, have a very touching scene where he thinks he's gonna die, and then Harley, helps him or something. It's something dumb. And then he actually just die. And that being so early on, and being a character that I really like, it was a slap to the face, honestly. The stakes were high from the very beginning. I guess moving on from one actor that I really like to another, the Thinker, Peter Capaldi, not a member of the Suicide Squad like a lot of people thought, and honestly, he's a bit underutilized. I wasn't too impressed by his use. He's got some good scenes, I'll give him that, but generally, he's not an interesting character to me. The Thinker is actually a really interesting villain in the comics, is one that I really like. I think of him as the leader in a lot of ways, to make a Marvel comparison. He's just not that good. He's not that good in this. And as well, it doesn't help that his look is a little bit too slapdash for me. I prefer when it's a bit more uniform in the comics. I understand that he's had this look of being a bit all over the place in other comics and stuff and other media. I just like him being a bit more uniform, he's purposely chosen these very specific things. It just didn't work for me. I really like Peter Capaldi's performance. He's one of my favourite British actors right now. Just in general, I love him as the Doctor and stuff, so I like his performance. I just think that the character wasn't that overly developed, and it kind of disappointed me because I was looking forward to the Thinker. Blackguard, Pete Davidson, he betrays them right at the start. That's about it. He's basically the reason why a lot of the team die instantly, which once I've gone through all the cast, I will kind of talk about the plot points that stand out to me. But yeah, Blackguard betrays them. He's a bit one note. I'm not too familiar with him as a character. I believe it's actually a Booster Gold villain, which is, pretty cool, I suppose. Pete Davidson, not someone who I generally enjoy. I thought he played the character well, but as I say, the character wasn't that interesting, and he dies very quickly. Polka Dot Man, David Dachmalian? I'm never sure how to pronounce his name. But yeah, Polka Dot Man. I love Polka Dot Man. He's one of my favorite, random niche villains in DC. His ability in the comics and the animated shows and stuff is so much more interesting than what he has in the film. In the film, it's basically he just throws his polka dots and they burn things. They work kind of like acid patches sort of deal. They create some heat, but they also melt things. And it's not that interesting. I was really hoping that he was going to have the variety, because in the comics and in the animated shows and stuff, some of his polka dots become portals, Some of them become throwing discs, like that blades. You can use them for all different uses. You can use them as flying platforms and stuff. Really interesting stuff, and it's not really that great. I do think, though, he is a really cool character in the film. I just, knowing the character already prior to this kind of ruined him in the film for me, but it's personal preference. Most people that don't know who Polka Dot Man is are going to really enjoy him. He's a cynic. He's very depressing, I think, but like he is a very cool character overall, and he does have a really neat thing of neat. He has a very interesting characteristic of because of the trauma he experienced as a child with his mother, who was like technically the person who gave him his powers. He sees her everywhere, and it's so dumb. And there's plenty of shots from his perspective where he's looking at various things, various characters, and sees his mother, including Starro towards the end, which is a very interesting look. But yeah, I like Polka Dot Man. He's one of my favourites, and yeah, while he's not my mind's eye of Polka Dot Man, in the film, I do still think it's a very good version of the Polka Dot Man, if nothing else. Who else have we got? Savant, Michael Rooker. Yeah, Savant's cool. The ability is nice. He once again dies. He's actually the only character, I believe, to have his head blown up by Waller. Now I think about it. Very early on. Yeah, it's Savant. I like Savant. I like Michael Rooker, honestly. I didn't really care too much. He's the first character you actually see on screen, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not overly sold on Savant in this, and luckily, I don't have to be sold on him because he's never coming back. He's dead. Mongal, played by Mei Ling NG. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, Mongal. She attacks a helicopter, kills Boomer. A lot of these characters lead to the death of Boomer. I'm realizing now. I don't really care. Very one note, doesn't really do much, isn't really seen much. Not that interesting. And Mongal isn't very interesting in the comics either, so I'm not really surprised. TDK, the detachable kid, as they call him. I can't remember the actual character that he's based on, but TDK isn't actually like the name of the character in the comics or the detachable kid. It's something else. I expected bigger things when I realized it was TDK, like the detachable kid. When I realized what his power set was, I thought it'd be cool. And it is played for laughs, to be honest. But like, he detaches his arms. His arms like float over at a walking pace towards the enemy and punch them and slap them a little bit. Doesn't really do any damage, and then when he gets shot in the arms, he dies. It's so dumb. It's once again an early death. I don't care really. The detachable kid TDK, not a character I'm at all like sad dies. Nathan Fillion plays him pretty well though. I can't fault him. I guess we'll get the two other early deaths out of the way so I can talk in detail about my two favorite characters. Weasel, who's motion capped by Sean Gunn. Weasel can't swim, drowns. And then in the post-credit turns out, oh no, he's actually alive still. It's so dumb. I don't care at all. He's probably going to appear in the Peacemaker series. He's okay. He's very one note. They have a nice little conversation about him, pretty early on. Beyond that, he's there to have a weird animal character to go alongside King Shark. Weirdly enough, though, Sean Gunn also plays Calendar Man in a different scene. Calendar Man isn't part of the team at any point, and I think there's also a few other villains that we see in the background that don't get play. But yeah, Calendar Man, pretty cool character. And then Javelin, the other character from the first team of the film, Flula, everyone knows from YouTube at this point. Yeah, Javelin, very one note, though Javelin, despite dying towards the start, is pivotal in actually defeating Starro when Harley uses the Javelin to actually kill him, basically, well, to start his demise. It's interesting. Javelin isn't a character that's very interesting generally. Flula plays him pretty well. I don't have anything else to say about it. So that does bring me to my two favourite villains of the film. Ratcatcher 2, played by Danielle Melchior. And I was not expecting this character to be of interest. I thought this character was going to be one of the early deaths. I'll be quite honest, especially based on the trailers where it was things like, it was very much a thing of like Bloodsport was like, I'll keep you safe. So I was like, well, she's not going to survive to the end. But yeah, no, she's a survivor, and her ability, despite it literally being summoning rats, is very effective, and I'm surprised that anyone could actually capture her. She is a deadly weapon with those rats, especially, like, I can't imagine if this was, like, in New York or something, or, like, an equivalent Metropolis or whatever, Gotham, something like that, you know? Because of the amount of rats that are in those locations, she would be an absolute hassle to deal with, anyone other than, like, Superman. So, yeah, I really like Ratcatcher. She has a very nice backstory with her father, Ratcatcher 1, who's actually played by Taika Waititi, of all people. Very, very fun scene. And, yeah, I grew to love this character way more than most of the cast, and I think that says a lot about both how, Daniela, actually plays the character. There we go. Got the words out eventually. As well as just how well Ratcatcher 2 is written. She has a gimmick of she's very tired all the time. That it's a gimmick, I guess. It's something of interest. She also has a little pet rat, which I don't have the name of written down, so I can't remember it right now. But yeah, very cute little pet rat that's like always with her. There's a very nice subplot with Bloodsport and that specific rat, because the fact that Bloodsport is afraid of them. They're a very good dynamic, surprisingly enough. Ratcatcher and Bloodsport work off each other very well. But yeah, it's a very cool character. I really didn't have expectations, so the fact that I enjoyed her character so much, it speaks to that. And then finally, from the villain roster, King Shark, Nanue, Sylvester Stallone as King Shark. My oh my. He is baby. And I know that's dumb language, I know it's stupid to say that, but like, seriously, I love him. I will protect him at all costs. He is the greatest thing in this film, and I will not hear otherwise. King Shark is a character that I have some knowledge of, mostly from the animated series, plural, and is a character that I didn't really care too much about when I heard that he was in Suicide Squad, but since the first trailers pointed him out to be just kind of a dumb, like, lovable character, and then with the events of the film, setting him up to just kind of want friends. And I think that's the biggest thing. That is kind of the theme of this film, is that, one, the lowlifes of the universe are the ones that actually, like, will get things done, and, you know, they're the majority even. But then there's also a really nice subplot of King Shark just making friends, for better or for worse. There's a pretty cute scene initially where Nanue starts interacting with a bunch of like alien fish. He makes friends with them, quote unquote. You know, they're playing around with him, and then they get out of the aquarium that they're in, and they start trying to eat him. And it's a very funny scene, but it's also very tragic because he's spent the entire film being told, you know, friends don't eat friends, stuff like that. You know, he's made friends with people like Ratcatcher and Bloodsport and stuff like that, just for him to make more friends that he actually, like, directly chose to have as friends. Like, because with Ratcatcher and Bloodsport, he kind of got forced into that. But he chose these friends. He wanted to be friends with these people. Or these fish, I suppose. And then it all falls apart. And it's actually a really tragic scene. But it's like, it just adds to how vulnerable this gigantic bulletproof shark actually is. And it honestly does make him the best villain in this film. And obviously when I'm referring to villains, I've been calling them villains the entire time. They're the main characters. They are the protagonists of the film. But, like, they are still villains. They're still bad guys within the universe. But yeah, King Shark, he's adorable. Sylvester Stallone is like such a random choice. It's on par with Groot being voiced by Vin Diesel. It's just like, why get someone this big of a name to say so little? But I love him. King Shark is the best, and I really hope we see more of King Shark in the future of the DCEU, or whatever they're calling it nowadays. I'm really excited for more King Shark. I love him so much. And that is the main Suicide Squad, but that does leave two other characters I just want to talk about. Colonel Rick Flag is played by Joel Kinnaman. I'm a huge fan of Joel. I think he does great work. I think he's really good. He's one of the highlights of the original Suicide Squad, and he's really good, if not better, in this. I really liked his portrayal. I liked the twist around him, where he essentially tries to double-cross Waller by, leaking a load of stuff to the press. He does unfortunately die in this, but he dies a hero's death, and I think that is a really good thing for him to do. It's going to be interesting if we get another actual Suicide Squad movie, who's going to be the leader, because Bloodsport leaves, and he was the leader of B-Team, and then A-Team was led by Rick Flag, who's also dead. So it's going to be interesting to see how they actually work on that. We might see the return of Will Smith, Deadshot, potentially. That would be interesting if Deadshot became a leader. That would be cool. But yeah, Colonel Rick Flag, very good character. I really do enjoy him. And yeah, it's sad to see him go. There's some really nice scenes after his death with Harley, because throughout the film they do have a relationship of being like just very close friends. They've clearly done a lot of missions together, and there's a care for each other. They actually want the best for each other, which is really nice to see. So when Harley is discussing like that Rick Flag is dead, she's going on about how they were friends, and that's the reason why she's upset. It's not really anything else that's happening around her. It's the fact that her friend, the only one she had left from this team, is dead. And she does become friends with Bloodsport, so it's all good. But yeah, it's a very surprising death, in my opinion. It's a character that I would never think would die in one of these, but in any case, still very touching, very impactful, and as I say, it is just a surprise. And that, of course, leaves us with Amanda Waller, Viola Davis. Amanda Waller was perfect in the first Suicide Squad, exactly how she needed to be, and quite honestly, yeah, she's perfect again. She has some fantastic scenes. She's, chewing on the scenery left, right, and centre. She is phenomenal in all regards, and I don't think there's really anything else to say about it. She is betrayed, but she doesn't actually do it. She doesn't actually take it how you'd expect. She doesn't start shooting all staff like she does in the first Suicide Squad. But it's a very interesting scene, and the aftermath is very interesting as well. I'm very excited to see more of Waller in the future, because at the very least, I would assume she will appear in the Peacemaker HBO series, if nothing else. And yeah, she's a highlight for sure, but not all too interesting. At the end of the day, she's an executive type character. She's the one in charge. She has a very good scene with Bloodsport early on, where she tells everyone to stand down while Bloodsport is holding a pen to her neck, like about to kill her. So, she's a very strong character. I do enjoy her a lot. And yeah, that's every character. My thoughts on everything with them. I really like this film. I really like the characters. The characters are a strong point. And yeah, I guess now I've got a few, random notes that I have, so I'm just going to go over those. So I would say that this is the most stake-filled film of all time. And I don't say that lightly. You literally see a cast of memorable, knowable characters die instantly, which is insane to happen. You don't expect it. And honestly, I went in not believing that the first team were going to die. I thought, it's probably going to be, half an hour or whatever, so long of a mission to show what the Suicide Squad's all about, and then we'll jump in with our main crew. Because I knew that some of the characters that were in the first team wouldn't be in the main team, But I thought, it's one of the things where it's like they probably complete a mission successfully, and then, we then see the chaos of a mission that goes badly with the second team, because that would make sense. No, first 10 minutes is a bloodbath, and it's amazing, but it shows the stakes, because all these characters that you've only just met, but you've been given some time to know their characterization and stuff, and then on top of that, characters like Captain Boomerang, characters that you already know from previous films. It's just, it all adds up to create such heavy stakes, and it's so good. I'm just going through my notes now. There's twists constantly in this, but that's not a surprise. I've mentioned most of them. I don't feel the need to go over many of the others, but there's just twists throughout. M. Night Shyamalan would be proud. Bloodshot is the strongest character in the DCU in terms of just actual characterization. I think he's phenomenal. Starro is different from the comic book version, but not in a bad way. Rather than it's hard to explain really. Starro is a very weird character in the comics, and they kind of carry that over, but there are some differences, some minor, some major. But at the end of the day, it's still a giant starfish that throws out smaller starfish to turn people into zombies. I'm fine with it, and honestly, Starro is perfect. I love Starro as a Suicide Squad villain. It's brilliant. It's the genius, how are we going to deal with this sort of threat? Harley is enjoyable. The Thinker is underutilized, I've already mentioned that. The horror elements. Oh, yes. So, with King Shark specifically, there are a lot of, various things. But, he eats people whole, in their entirety. He tears people in half in gruesome fashion. It's ridiculous, honestly. And then there's a moment I say towards the end. It's in one of the final fight scenes where he takes the head off somebody, and the head is just sat there in his mouth, and the eyes are still moving. It is so scary. It's unnerving, as I said, and I went into the film not realizing it was a 15, because I don't check age restrictions anymore on films because I don't need to. But I went in thinking, oh, it's a 12. It's not going to be that explicit. It's going to be like Guardians, where it's there's a little bit of there's a bit of swearing. That's about it. No, this film is gory to the fullest extent, and it's insane. I love it. I loved every moment of it. And then I guess before we talk about the end credits, the odd portrayal of Polka Dot Man's virus. I'm not too familiar with Polka Dot Man's backstory, I'll be quite honest, from the comics. But in this, they basically said that he was experimented on by his mother, and given an alien virus, which is what gives him his polka dot abilities. Now, the origin that I know is that his suit has polka dots on it. He invented a suit that had polka dots on it. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether that's a modern origin or something, but yeah, I wasn't too big on that. I think it's just kind of odd. He had various scenes where he had a rash, he calls it. He basically had brightly coloured pimples that were just sprouting up on his face and hands, and he had to sick a load of polka dots up. It was a very odd thing, and yeah, I don't think it really gets utilised to the extent that it probably should have, but it's an odd characterization. I don't know if it's from the comics or not. It was just something of interest. But yeah, going on to the post-credits, which this is already a very long video, so I apologise for that. But yeah, we have Weasel that survives. I've already mentioned this, but yeah, Weasel managed to survive drowning far after the actual main events of the film have happened, and yeah, I hope that he gets killed in the Peacemaker series, because it annoyed me in the cinema, I'll be quite honest, because I quite liked that they killed him off in a comedic way, because it set a good precedent, and then to undo that, I don't know, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm sure most people would find that it's quite funny. I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't for me, and it's each their own. I literally put "Weasel, you bastard" in my notes. And then the second post credit, the true post credit, is that Peacekeeper is alive, which Peacemaker, I don't know. I've written down Peacemaker here. He's alive despite the fact that he was shot in the jugular by Bloodsport, and he's going to be used to save the world. That's literally the setup for it. And obviously this is for his show, this is for his HBO series, and I don't have an issue with it necessarily, but like, as well, they set it up before they show who it is. They set it up by saying it's a miracle his heart was still beating, this is a resilient one. And Rick Flag had been stabbed in the heart. Mortal Kombat style, X-ray vision into the heart sort of deal. So I was like, oh wow, Rick Flag actually survived it. No, it's Peacemaker. And yeah, I don't care. As I say, I didn't really like his character portrayal. I didn't like the characterization generally. And yeah, overall, it just wasn't a character I really loved. I'm probably going to watch the show just because it's something to watch, but I'm not as excited as I would have been if it was a show about King Shark or something. That's just me though, and I'm sure many people will disagree with me and say that Peacemaker is the strongest character in this film, but that's just my personal opinion, and at the end of the day, it's my review, I can say what I want. And that brings us to my end rating, I guess. So, this is a phenomenal film. It's hyper-stylized, stupidly funny, well-written, and just generally a really fun time. I don't have much bad to say about it, other than that there are some characters that are underutilized, and that's really it. I don't have many issues. There's some things that exist in the wider universe of the film that are questionable, and also the fact that there's characters like Harley Quinn, it kind of removes some of the stakes, because obviously a character like Harley Quinn isn't going to die, but when they're killing off pretty much every other character at random, you can feel pretty safe that the stakes are still intact, and I think that is why, overall, I gave it a 5-star or 10 out of 10 rating. I think it's a phenomenal film. I think it's as perfect as a superhero film can honestly get, and this is coming from someone who loves superhero films, and is especially a fan of Marvel. I adore this film, and I can't wait to watch it again. I'm going to be seeing it soon, this weekend, I believe. So yeah, it's brilliant. I loved it, and I'd hugely recommend it if you're interested at all, even in the slightest, about this film. It's so good, and yeah, that's going to be it for this video. So thanks for watching, like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you in the next review. Bye!
It's been a long week, I feel like I could use a vacation.